Bruce Dickinson, Take 2, The Chemical Wedding, 13 tracks for 71 minutes, the fifth solo studio album from Iron Maiden frontman, released July 1998 by Sanctuary Records, produced by Roy Z, recorded at Sound City and Silver Cloud Studios in California. One single was released in Killing Floor. The album peaked at number 55 in the UK while doing okay in Europe and Southeast Asia. The lineup for this features Adrian Smith and Roy Z on guitar and backing vocals, Eddie Casillas on bass, and David Ingraham on drums and percussion, while Jimmy crawls under the camera. This album was inspired by the works of poet William Blake and eventually was released as a movie with Dickinson having written the script, though it is different to the concept of the album overall. Mick?
On the back of Bruce putting himself back on the metal map with Action of Birth, The Chemical Wedding is a fantastic follow-up to that. He did lose his way in the early days or the first couple of years of his solo career, but on the back end, he just really made up for lost time. And this album is a fantastic release. Much heavier than anything Maiden had done at that point in time. It was the albums that Maiden should have done or should have been moving into that direction, and they just simply weren't.
I thought it was funny how this influenced stuff coming later on.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah,
I think if Bruce was going to join back, I think he was saying that we need to get more current but still be the same. It has a hint of Maiden at times. Some of the guitar fills, like little licks and stuff, and you're going to get that with Adrian Smith being on the guitar and stuff like that. Sorry.
That's the reason.
Yeah. Okay. Vocal, it's a more it's just Bruce Dickinson straight up. You know what he does and everything else. So it's just a more modern style of metal that he's behind. It's very laid. It's very thick in production. Something again that Maiden doesn't really do. Or not often. It was a fantastic release. It probably should have did more. It probably would have done a lot more if it was under the Iron Maiden banner. I think by this point in time, a lot of people had given up on Bruce, and you had to really kind of take a chance on it, And those who did, I know I did back in the day, was pleasantly surprised, and I went back and bought Accident of Birth and stuff like that. I gave it a 9 out of 10.
Nice.
I thought it was a fantastic album. The Tower, Killing Floor, Gates of Horizon, and Machine Men were my standouts. Yeah, very good.
Cool. I've had a best of CD from Dickinson for the past 10 or whatever years, but I've never actually heard a full album.
Okay.
This is a great place to start. It's a fucking amazing album. It opens with something completely different to what you get with Maiden. Then that unmistakable voice comes out. You can just tell it's him. It is strange not hearing the galloping bass behind it and what you would get from Maiden, but once you get over that it's not Maiden, it's a different band, or mostly a different band, because you've got Adrian Smith, then you can adjust and you really enjoy it. I did hear a lot of what they do in Brave New World on this, like you were mentioning a couple of minutes ago. It's a bit more current. There is a bit of new metal at times. That song Trumpets of Jericho, it's got a bit of the heavier riffing. Adrian Smith and Roy Z, they have some amazing lead guitar work on this album. It's very cool. Dickinson has assembled a great band for this. If you're a fan of Maiden and like me, you've neglected to listen to this, unfuck it as soon as possible. I gave it 9 out of 10 as well.
Nice.
The Tower, Killing Floor, Jerusalem, Trumpets of Jericho, and The Alchemist were my standouts.
I love this record. Absolutely love it.
Bang, straight out of the box.
It's Bruce doing that Brucey thing that he does.
Bruce.
It's
Don't make friends with salad.
It's true, but the way he uses his voice is he's got this uplifting thing that he does, and it's fantastic. And everything about this album that he's put together is fantastic. Like these guys have said, it is a bit of a precursor to the more recent Iron Maiden albums. If you listen to the earlier Bruce albums, he's definitely gone to more of that, that heavy metal feel. His earlier ones are a little bit more rocky, and this one's a little more chuggy and a bit heavier and a bit more of a slap. It's fantastic. The highlight for me as well was a lot of the instrumental sections as well that have this kind of... the way they change the tempo and the way they change the feel of the album and the flow really does break it up quite nicely. I do quite enjoy it. I think it's a fantastic listen. I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
Nice.
I love this album too. I'd never heard it. Similar to yourself, as a Maiden fan, I'm actually amazed. I hadn't even heard of it, to be honest.
Oh, wow.
So I heard Tattooed Millionaire when that came out, didn't like it, and didn't explore Bruce's solo stuff after that point. And as a result, this, and what was the other album you told me to listen to?
Accident of Birth. And
I checked that out as well, and I'm like, holy shit, this show cost me a fortune, because I've got to go back and buy more items.
Don't you love joining us now?
Yeah, which is nothing new. It happens every week. This is good. This is really heavy, and I love the guitar sound on it. You know, like I really would have liked Maiden to have gone in this direction at this period. It would have been.
I think
so
that's
much more
unanimous.
fun. Yeah. Vocally, it's excellent. Just brilliant. Like on par, if not better than anything he's ever done with Maiden. I was really, really blown away by it. I love it, and lyrically, really cool. So, exactly.
Yeah, sounds exciting too.
It's
Nala.
It's a
Here's
pretty,
trouble.
Here's trouble. It's a pretty outstanding metal album. If you're a metal fan, you like Maiden, you like. Check it out. This is going real well. I give it 9 out of 10. Highlights. To him. Fuck the highlights. Off you go.
Yeah, this is good now. Nala. Stop. No, that's alright. Caesar. Give me a second. Nala. Hey.
Nada.
This is not going to TV, clearly. Now, this is not a story where the artist merely continues what he's doing with his main band.
Did we miss Nick?
Oh, sorry, you go. Sorry. Dogs put me off.
Professionals.
Dogs. No, go.
So this guy's amazing. After leaving Maiden in 94, he released Balls to Picasso in 94. He released Skunkworks in 96, Accident of Birth in 97, then this in 98? Something like that. So four albums in 4 years, and they're all just as good as each other. Well, some I should say better than others, but they're all very, very good. The first thing you may notice about this is how heavy it is. Some of the guys already picked up on it.
Yeah.
Now, I've been told that Roy Z and Adrian Smith actually used bass guitar strings on some of their guitars.
Oh, wow. I didn't know
to get that done. So there you go. Bit of knowledge for you.
That'll learn you.
Yeah, that'll learn you.
The knowledge.
Now I know.
Each song on his got the really dark and heavy riffs, and it's got that kind of mystical atmosphere in a way as well, and it fits the album quite nicely. Fortunately, though, even though it's heavy, the melodic elements are still there, so we still get to hear Bruce use his tenor voice and just wail over the top of all these things, which I loved. Individual performances on this album are superb. The main highlight is obviously Bruce, as expected, but there's a reason why Adrian Smith is my favourite ever member of Iron Maiden.
Yeah, I agree with that.
His playing on this is just immense, and him and Roy Z just really lock in together. They're in lethal form on this record. There's a little bit of everything for everyone that likes Bruce or Maiden, or just really that classic style of metal and hard rock on this album to be found. Book of Thel, that's probably the best song on offer for me on this album. It's also the longest and most aggressive on the album, and Bruce sounds really gritty, and he starts using a side of his voice that we don't really hear him use too much. The title track is also great. It's mid-paced. It's got that whole mysterious, mystic feeling to it. And that chorus in that title track is awesome as well, so definitely check that out. And another highlight is The Alchemist. Mid-paced, and like the title track, has that mystic feel to it. But towards the end of the track, it beautifully merges into this chorus, and it kind of does a throwback to the title track of the album as well, so something for there. As much as I love the album, it's not one completely without its flaws, though. I think Dickinson's voice on some of the more aggressive tracks kind of feels a little bit out of place. I think, I don't know what it is. Just I think his voice is a bit not suited to some of the really, really heavier, more aggressive tracks on this album.
I think you're not used to it because he was so many years in Maiden.
Yeah.
You know, and they never really explored that till after the solo stuff, you know, when Dance of Death era and stuff like that. You know, you're not used to it. I think that's what it is. I think it works really well.
But like Dave said before, what you hear on this album is what Maiden would become when Bruce came back.
Yeah. For an album, at least,
and maybe that's what Bruce said. He said, "Hey, if I'm going to come back, Adrian's got to come back for me as well." And it was almost like full shading with that as well.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah. And the other thing is, there were 2 tracks on here that really didn't do much for me, which was Killing Floor and Machine Men. I thought they were pretty ordinary. That's just my opinion. Overall, very good album, but not his best solo effort. That one goes to Accident of Birth from
you are wrapped on that
97. I love that album.
Yeah.
I was spilling that one didn't make the list, to be honest.
Audience
which is about as flawless an album as Dickinson's ever done. But still, that album, Accident of Birth, and this Chemical Wedding are probably the peak of his solo output. Highlights for me, Book of Thel, Jerusalem, The Alchemist, and The Tower. And I'll give it 8 Boeing 747s out of 10 fencing strings.
Fuck, you were right, they get worse.
They do.
Alright. I don't know what you give Lulu, but anyway. Now, as I was saying before I realised that I fucked up, this is not a story where the artist just continues on with what they were doing before. He goes and branches out with this release. As you'd expect, this is all very well performed. The calibre of musicians involved in this simply wouldn't allow for anything less than that. Bruce sounds big, strong and powerful. You can also really get the Adrian Smith element on this as well. I think the way those two work together is impressive. Like, it's just so good, and that's where Iron Maiden lost its way for mine. we did that already in the Iron Maiden special. Now, musically, as I said, that this is not Iron Maiden, so don't go listen to this thinking it is. This is much more contemporary metal for the late 90s. Riff focused, syncopated with pounding drums and bass. Bruce really explores more of his voice on this release as well. There's some softer moments, to almost harsh screaming going on this release. It's dark, aggressive, and it's brooding. It's very cool. Production, I thought, was a bit compressed. It's very much a product of the time, though. So, Nala, stop. No. Shh. Nala, hey, no. Anyway, as I was saying, it's the dense sound without a lot of reverb and that applied to it. It's very just chunked in. And I think you notice that more in the vocals because they come through a bit dry on this mix as well, which is, again, not helpful because with Iron Maiden it was always sort of the big production stuff, and then you go to this stuff and it's very blunt by comparison. I think it works well, and it shows how powerful Bruce actually is without studio help, so it's very good to hear him like that. It's just different. But they sit him right in the mix too, which is good. Everything else is just time-stamped. It just sits where it's supposed to. Things are deadened off that little bit in the frequency range just to give it that... I don't know, there's a thing they did in the 90s where they just started to kill frequencies off, and I don't like that, and they did it to this record. It just overcooks things a bit for me, and just, I don't know. For the era and the style, it's one of the better ones in that regard, but they still did it, and it always irks me. The lyrical content inspired by William Blake is overall very dark and evil in the context of things. It's got a great sense of theatre about it, though. It's well crafted. Bruce has owned that part really, really well, I thought. It all ties together within the theme, and the songs sort of compile a collection of short stories within a bound book in that kind of facet. Like, it's not a complete novel per se, but all the stories go together into a collection of short stories that really fit together well. I thought the track order was all thought out, good balance and placement of songs. The expanded edition of this might stretch people's attention a bit too much overall, but generally speaking, it's a pretty riveting listen that covers a fair bit of variety in the tracks. The mid-song changes, they work really well in that favour. Again, this is everything from ballads to pretty much new metal riffs, all performed expertly with Bruce's power over the top. Not the strongest release on repeat listens I found. I just think that it does, if you go back to it again, it's like, I've heard it, and it's one you get out from time to time, not one you go to as a definitive go-to album from one. But some of the lead work on this is fucking fantastic. My first pass of this was good but not riveting. The second go around with full attention paid to it sucked me in. This is one of those albums you need to give your focus as well. It may not hold up on repeat. It's one of those ones you do actually need to still give some time to fully appreciate, in my opinion. I think it's rewarding if you do that. It's not one for a purely casual listen. But it's a good solid album. 8.5 out of 10. The Tower, Book of Thel, and Real World. My standouts. Check it out for yourselves. Let us know what you think. Bruce Dickinson, The Chemical Wedding, 13 tracks for 71 minutes, the fifth solo studio album from the Iron Maiden frontman, released July 1998 via Sanctuary Records. Brendan!
Fridge.
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 I thought you were telling me to go.
That was not going to stop if I didn't stop it. It'll do that every 30 seconds until we're done. That's a long time.
You could use that as a timer.
Starting again. All right. Hey!
Wayne, the fucking links you'll go to with fuck over an Iron Maiden. It's astounding.
It's all in the timing, isn't it?
So sorry, everybody. I just wanted to sneak in real quiet.